To continue to serve. On behalf of the President of the Grandad Return Services Club, the committee and its members, I welcome everybody to our Anzac Day Service for 2021. I'd like to invite Rev Mua Strickson-Pua for our opening reading. Thank you.
Ecclesiastes 3, verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. A feel mai, haere mai, welcome one, welcome all. Kia rana, pulavanaka, namaste, whakalofalai atu, malo ni, malo ilelei, whakalofalai atu, whakalofa tālofala atu, talofalava, ni hao, zao, and konnichiwa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Special greetings to our New Zealand Army, to our Royal New Zealand Navy, to our Royal New Zealand Air Force, and welcome back Lynn community, our beloved Lynn family of humanity, from our 2019 COVID-19. A moment of silence for those who passed away, our shared reality, and now our experience, our history. COVID-19 wiser, our team of 5 million, our world, our planet, our silence. Mahalo. Great to be back. We have a Greyland tradition, a very long introduction, followed by a very short prayer. But before we do our prayer, a few housekeeping duties. 4 reminders for 2021. 1, it is the 80th anniversary of the formation of the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, WAIF, 16th of January 1941. Sacrifice and service. Number 2, the 75th anniversary of J-Force landing in Japan to participate in demilitarization and demobilization of Japan, 1946. Number 3, our very own Lynn Ponsonby, 50th anniversary of our beloved Polynesian Panthers. Our Lynn local who lives just over there off Richmond Road, our Associate Professor of University of Auckland, Dr. Melania Nai, who has recently published The Platform, A Radical Legacy of the Polynesian Panthers. As an aside, Polynesian Panthers, the TV series, was filmed in Lynn and Ponsonby. Our very own Lynn Return Service Club was the base and location. Ma lo lava, ainga, whānau, family, sacrifice and service. Now, number 4, I know that the Cook Islanders will enjoy this message, so kia rana. Cook Island World War I Anzac tomorrow, te reo, Hotanui o te Moana Kiwa, the Pacific Island Memorial, Puki Ahu National War Memorial Park, Wellington. We wish to also acknowledge the unveiling earlier this year of the Cook Island World War I Anzac sculpture, sacrifice and service. Let us pray. Atua akua ariki, God. Lynn, ainga of humanity, whānau of humanity, family of humanity. Po atarau e moi I hihu nei, this is the words. We gather once again to honour, to celebrate our tūpunga, our tipuna, our Anzac ancestors. We have not forgotten their sacrifice, their service to our nation, to a world of social justice and social change. May we continue in our lives, in our families, in our communities, amongst the nations, honouring, celebrating our people's story, our nation's history, being the descendants of our beloved Anzac ancestors. Te rererengi nā o hui te rangi ora. the journey of Hui Te Rangiora, follow in the footsteps of our ancestors, protect our planet's sacrifice and service. We will never forget. Ake, 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 amene. And as the Samoans would say, because it's our beloved, beloved ancestors, choo-hoo! Manuia.
Followed by a badly lapsed Catholic. I'd like to invite the first of our speakers for this morning, Goff, for his address. Thank you.
I ngā mana, I ngā reo, e ro rangatira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, tēnei te mihi nui ki a koutou, and good morning and welcome to everybody. I'm not going to acknowledge people individually, but to acknowledge everybody here who has turned out today to show their respect for present and past generations of our service personnel who have put their lives at risk and sacrificed their lives so that we can enjoy the freedom and the peace that we have today. I have, however, been asked by the Prime Minister to pass on her best wishes to everybody here. She is frequently an attender at this service, but apparently this year it was Mount Albert's turn, and she's got to be fair to all sides of her electorate. But she spoke very movingly this morning at the Dawn Parade. And if I pick up one theme of what she talked about, while most of the casualties in the First and Second World War were young men, to also remember the role that women played in those wars. One, those who were the nurses that worked under absolutely appalling conditions. You just think back to the First World War when they often didn't have anaesthetics, when amputations were the most frequent answer to a limb wound from a bullet. And they worked under horrendous conditions, and we pay tribute to those 500 women who served, and some of them died during the First World War. I pay tribute also to the role of women as the people who kept the home fires burning, and the people that suffered incredibly because it was their sons who were killed. And I think at this time of my grandmother, who lost her brother in the Great War and then lost her youngest son, aged 19, in the Pacific serving with the RNZAF in the Second World War. And I remember the sadness in her eyes that I saw again when my nephew was killed in action in Afghanistan, Captain Matt Ferrara, in 2007, and to see my sister go through that same horrendous experience. So today, certainly we're not here to glorify war. War is about suffering and destruction, but we are here to honour the courage and the resilience of those people who served on our behalf, who put their lives at risk, who died rather than let their mates or their country down. And that's what today is about, honouring those people who sacrificed so that we can enjoy the privileged life that we have today, living in a peaceful country and enjoying the freedom that they fought and died for. I think back to the First War and the enormous sacrifice that was made by this country. Barely 1 million people, and we mobilised and sent abroad 100,000 young men and women. 100,000. 18,000 of those people never came home. 60,000 came back with the physical wounds of war. And more on top of that, came back absolutely traumatised by what they had been through. And they say that that was the war to end all wars. Yet, just 20 years later, our country was again at war, fighting the twin evils of fascism and Nazism. And again, 12,000 of our people died in that conflict, and we remember them today. But I also want to acknowledge the work that has been done since those two world wars. The wars the conflicts that New Zealand was involved in Malaya and Malaysia, in Korea, in Timor-Leste, the Solomons and Afghanistan, and to pay tribute to the men and women of our Defence Force who have served our country so well. And as a minister, I went to many of those deployments and remember the respect with which the person that wore the Kiwi as an emblem on their shoulder was held by the people in the countries that they'd gone to help, and in particular in Timor-Leste, where I arrived shortly after we'd deployed our troops. I'd been there months earlier for the period of time for the referendum on independence, and we were in a Unimog, and it had a Kiwi emblem on the side of the truck. And as we drove through a village, I saw a school where the corrugated iron had been removed off the roof by the militias. The school burnt down, and the children were learning under trees like these ones. And I said to my driver, please, can you stop and I'll take a picture of that? And I went out up to the fence where the kids were sitting just on the other side of it. And they looked up and they saw the Kiwi emblem on the truck. And I've got this wonderful picture of 100 kids running towards me with their thumbs up saying, Kiwi, kia ora. And 3 months earlier, those kids would have been frightened of a person in uniform, the Indonesian occupiers. And it was a sign of the real respect and the way that our people behaved on that occasion and on so many other deployments. So I pay respect to them. And finally, I want to pay respect to those members of our Defence Force that are currently serving in our MIQ facilities. They are doing a difficult job and they're doing it hugely well. This time last year, we were in the battle against COVID-19. We could not meet. We stood separated in our driveways. So it's great to see the crowds that are here today coming here to commemorate, to pay tribute to those to whom we owe so much. So today, we remember those who have served on our behalf. We remember those in particular that died for us, our future and our country. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much.
Morena. It's a very beautiful day and it's lovely to be back here after a year's absence. And it's a wonderful thing that we can all gather today. It's a great honour to be here, and I absolutely back up Melissa and looking around me and seeing the houses that are here and were here, most of them, at the time when people's families were affected by the call to war. I want to give you at least a positive story from that time, because this is a time where most of our veterans have already gone, and so it's really easy for us to lose that sense of reality for people. And one of the stories that I came across this week was a really lovely one. These two brothers had both tried to enlist in World War I, and one of them had been unable to do so because he had been medically unfit. His brother returned halfway through the war for some leave, and they swapped places, and nobody actually ever knew. So for that family, they both came home and they lived into their 90s. Now that's a family that didn't have to suffer loss, but I bet it suffered. I bet it suffered trauma. I bet its family was worried and grieved, and it would have been a traumatic experience, but that's a happy story. But around us are probably people who lost their relatives, who lost a whole thread of history through till now, and I honour them. And I honour our armed forces now who have really stepped up and actually been prepared to make sacrifices most of us are very, very worried about you making, and you have our support and absolutely our respect. Thank you.
I shall read a modified version of our beautiful Anzac Requiem. On this day, above all days, we recall those who served in war, who did not return to receive the grateful thanks of the nation. We remember those who still sleep where they were left amid the holy scroll in the valleys and the ridges of Gallipoli, on the rocky terrace hills of Palestine, and in the lovely cemeteries of France. We remember those who lie asleep and ground beneath the shimmering haze of the Libyan desert at Bardia, Derna Torbuk, and amid the mountain passes, olive groves of Greece and Crete, and the rugged snow-capped hills of Syria. We remember those who lie buried in the rank jungles of Malaya in New Guinea and the distant isles of the Pacific. We remember those who lie buried amongst loving friends in our motherland and in our own far north. We remember those who lie in unknown resting places in almost every land, and those gallant men whose grave is the unending sea. Especially do we remember those who died as prisoners of war, remote from their homeland and from the comforting presence of their kith and kin. We think of those, our women's services, who gave their lives in our own and foreign lands and at the sea, and of those who proved to be in much more than name, the sisters of our fighting men. We recall too the staunch friends who fought beside our men in the first Anzac, men of New Zealand who helped to create the name of Anzac. We recall all those who gave their lives in the British Army, the Royal Navy, the Royal Air Force, and other British and Dominion forces. And we think of those British men and women who fell when, for the second time in history, their nation and its kindred stood alone against the overwhelming might of an oppressor. We think of every man and woman who, in those crucial hours, died so that the light of freedom, humanity, might continue to shine. We think of those gallant men who died in Korea, Malaysia, Vietnam, assisting to defend the Commonwealth and other countries in the free world against a common enemy. May these all rest proudly in the knowledge of their achievement, and may we and our successors in that heritage prove worthy of their sacrifice.
New Zealand Defence Force Major Nick Jones. behalf of the Auckland Council, Mayor Phil Goff and Councillor Pipacoon. On behalf of the Labor Party, Helen White. On behalf of the National Party, Melissa Lee. On behalf of the Waitemata Local Board, Karen Leone. On behalf of the Grayling Return Services Club Welfare Section, Welfare Officer Dr. Sandra Bassett and her assistant Marilyn Maguire. On behalf of the Grayling Business Association, Mr. Paul Stevenson. On behalf of the Grayling Return Services Club Over 60s, Lynette Harvey. On behalf of the Grayling Return Services Club members, Leader Cairns. On behalf of Business Grey, Lynn, Soala Wilson. On behalf of Grayling School, Isla and Jonty Dwight, Sadie and Forbes Goodwin. Thank you.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more.
While we seek mirth and beauty, and music light and gay, there are frail forms waiting at the door.
Though their voices are silent, their looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. It's the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. It's the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more.
It's a sigh that is wafted across the troubled wave. It's a wail that is heard on the shore. It's a dirge that is murmured around the lonely grave. Oh, hard times come again no more.
It's the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
The benediction.
I thought the singing was amazing. Please, can we give them another hand? Before I do the last prayer, I had an uncle in Samoa, an auntie in Fiji, Facebook me to tell me, Mua, can you remind Grey Lynn that the rest of the Pacific nations are doing Anzac ceremonies? So just once again, a reminder that in the Pacific, there were people with the Anzac forces on that very special day of our nation. So thank you, Auntie. Thank you, Uncle. Our peace prayer. Let us pray. Grey Lynn, ainga of humanity, whānau of humanity, family of humanity. For atarau e moia iho nei, now is the hour for me to say goodbye. E hare ana ko kia pāmāmau, soon you'll be sailing far across the sea. Haere rā, ka hoki mai anō, while you're away, oh please remember me. Ki I te tau e tangi atu nei, When you return, you will find me waiting here. Psalm 34, verse 14, turn away from evil and do good. Search for peace and work to maintain it. Ataturk shares these words. Those heroes that shed their blood in this country, you are in the soil of a friendly country. Rest in peace. You are lying side by side, bosom to bosom with Met. Your mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are in our bosoms. They are in peace. After having lost their lives on this soil, they have become our sons as well. Our tour, we honour and celebrate sacrifice and service. Our beloved Anzac ancestors to Ottoman Empire, to Turkey, and back to Aotearoa, New Zealand. We continue to seek peace. Ag, ag, ag. Amen.
I'm going to make him go last next year. Ladies and gentlemen, that basically concludes our service for Anzac Day 2021. We might as well throw in 2020 with it. On behalf of the Greyland Return Services Club, the club is open. The club is part of the Greyland community. And parade commanders, I'd kindly ask you to dismiss the parade. Thank you.